Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Arpan Khanna. I am the Conservative Member of Parliament from Oxford, joined by some great Conservatives behind me as well. We have the great Pierre Poilievre, we have Michael Guglielmin, Leila Goodridge, Jazz Rajhalan, Larry Brock, we have Frank Caputo, Raquel Doncho, and Amarjeet Gill from Brampton. The results of the Liberal bail reform are in. They failed. They failed victims, survivors, their families, and our communities. Simply because every day, Canadians wake up to devastating, tragic headlines. Headlines of extortion, murder, broad daylight shootings, violent carjackings and home invasions, sexual assaults. Headlines that seem like the plot of the latest Hollywood blockbuster or a Netflix series have sadly become the reality here in Canada after 10 years of Liberal soft-on-crime, catch and release laws. This reality allows repeat offenders to sexually assault our children, commit violent offenses, and murder innocent Canadians. This is the failed Liberal record. Liberal laws like C-75 have allowed these criminals to terrorize our communities over and over and over again. They're costing us lives, they're shattering families, and they're destroying Canadians. And every day that goes by without change, without action, 1,600 new violent crimes happen in our country. 1,600 a day. If you do the math, that's almost one per minute. And Canadians are terrified. They're scared. And they want action. And they want action now. Instead, the Liberals continue to play politics and chase photo ops. And while the Liberals will deny, deflect, distract on their failed Liberal record, Conservatives under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre have been putting forward thoughtful policy to restore safe streets in our country once again. And that is why last week I tabled the Jail Not Bail Act, a bill that would put repeat violent offenders behind bars where they belong. This bill would repeal the disastrous principle of restraint that the Liberals introduced, forcing judges to release the most violent repeat offenders on bail on the least restrictive conditions at the earliest opportunity. Our bill will repeal that. We will start a new major offenses category that would make bail tougher for those that are charged with crimes like extortion, home invasions, arson, attacking a law enforcement officer, and others. We will make sure judges are given the clarity they need to enforce and practice the law by making sure that it's mandatory to look at the criminal's history. And we'll also make changes to the release conditions so criminals that have long rap sheets cannot vouch for other criminals as sureties. So to share more about our Conservative vision, I'd like to call up to the podium the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and the next Prime Minister of our country, Pierre Poilievre. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Arpan, et merci aux députés conservateurs qui travaillent chaque jour pour rendre notre pays sécuritaire. Notre but, c'est encore d'avoir un pays où les gens ont des grands chèques de paie avec un grand pouvoir d'achat, qui peuvent dépenser dans des communautés sécuritaires avec des logements abordables, unis sur un fier drapeau. Quand nous étions jeunes, on était capables de jouer dans les rues, que ce soit le hockey ou d'aller au parc. Nos parents n'avaient pas besoin de s'en inquiéter. On était capable de s'endormir sans peur de perdre sa voiture ou d'avoir un criminel entrer dans la maison pour nuire à la famille. Mais maintenant, après 10 ans des libéraux et des lois libérales, cette sens de sécurité qui existait au Canada, qu'on prenait pour acquis, n'est plus là. Il y a 6 ans que les libéraux ont adopté le principe de modération dans la loi C-75. Ce principe oblige les juges à libérer les criminels et, je cite, dès que possible dans les conditions les moins contraignantes. Ça, c'est la cause. Voici les faits. Un homme de Saint-Jérôme, maintenant accusé de meurtre de sa conjointe, avait été arrêté 30 fois avant, depuis 2004. Il avait enfreint ses conditions de remise en liberté 16 fois. La majorité de ces crimes étaient liés à la violence conjugale. Ma question pour les libéraux, vous pensez que c'est correct que quelqu'un qui a déjà eu 30 crimes, qui a enfreint ses conditions de libération sous caution 16 fois, soit libéré? La responsabilité pour ce crime reste avec les libéraux. Oui, avec les libéraux qui ont permis à cet homme-là d'être libéré. C'est une loi libérale qui a permis sa libération et c'est après des années et des années que les policiers, des victimes et des conservateurs ont réclamé un renversement des lois libérales. Ce n'est pas comme les libéraux n'ont pas été avertis du danger de leur politique. Ils savaient. Mais qu'est-ce que M. Carney a fait? Il est allé en vacances d'été. Après des élections, il n'a rien fait pour renverser les lois libérales en termes de libération sous caution. Et maintenant, cette femme a payé le prix pour l'irresponsabilité de Mark Carney et des libéraux. Ce n'est pas juste elle. On voit aussi le mois dernier, Shakir Badi, d'Ajax, a été arrêté pour une violente intrusion dans un domicile en enlèvement qui ont grièvement blessé un homme de 54 ans. Il a ensuite été libéré sous caution. Il a été libéré sous caution. Écoute son bilan. Auparavant, il avait des accusations de tentative de meurtre, complot en vue de commettre un enlèvement, vol à main armée, déguisement avec intention, possession d'une arme à feu à autorisation restreinte sans permis, possession d'un dispositif interdit sans autorisation, possession de biens obtenus par des moyens criminels d'une valeur supérieure de 5 000 $. Au moment de son arrestation, un autre accomplice présumé, Masish Mohammed, était lui-même en liberté sous caution pour d'autres infractions. Ce n'est juste un peu des exemples des criminels. On voit qu'à Vancouver, les mêmes 40 criminels ont été arrêtés plus de 1000 fois dans un an. Donc, on parle, 6 000 fois. 6 000 arrestations pour 40 criminels. C'est-à-dire que chaque criminel a été arrêté 150 fois parce qu'ils étaient libérés par les lois libérales, surtout la loi C-75. On voit aussi, après avoir été reconnu coupable d'agression et de menaces, James Plover a été libéré en attendant sa sentence. 3 heures plus tard, il a sauvagement tué son ex-conjointe Bailey McCourt dans un stationnement seulement 4 kilomètres du palais de justice. C'est épouvantable et tellement évitable. Mais à cause de la libération sous caution des libéraux, ces tragédies ont été possibles. Ce n'est pas juste des histoires, c'est des faits. Depuis leur arrivée au pouvoir, les libéraux ont permis à 330% plus de criminalité de l'extorsion. Les agressions sexuelles ont augmenté de 76%. À cause des politiques des libéraux, les crimes violents ont augmenté de 55%. Les homicides ont augmenté de 29%. M. Carney a promis que les libéraux allaient faire volte-face sur la question de libération sous caution. Il a fait juste avant les élections une grande promesse. Il a dit, nous, les libéraux, avons appris de nos erreurs. Nous allons renverser nos politiques libérales sur la criminalité. 6 mois plus tard, il est où la loi? Il est où? Ça fait 6 mois. Il a dit qu'il allait agir rapidement. C'est où? En plus, il a mis en place ses deux pires ministres pour gérer le dossier de criminalité. Il y a Sean Fraser, le ministre qui a détruit notre système d'immigration et notre marché de logement, et maintenant le ministre de la Justice. Il y a pour la sécurité publique le ministre Gary Nanasangri qui est dans un scandale où il avoue que la politique libérale sur la question de criminalité et d'armes à feu ne va pas fonctionner, mais ils vont aller de l'avant pour des raisons de vote. Ils valorisent des votes plus que les vies des Canadiens. Assez, c'est assez. Nous demandons aujourd'hui que les libéraux s'enlèvent de la chemin. Je sais qu'ils ne vont jamais faire un vrai changement sur la criminalité, donc nous allons le faire. Nous sommes ici pour prendre une action positive. Nous avons mis de l'avant la loi d'Arpancana C-242 qui va éliminer la libération sous caution des libéraux et le remplacer avec des sentences en prison. Ça va éliminer le principe de caution. Juste un instant. Ça va éliminer le principe de caution pour faire en sorte que les criminels restent en prison. Cette politique que les conservateurs ont proposée a obtenu déjà l'appui de l'Association des policiers de Toronto, plusieurs défenseurs communautaires et Debbie Henderson, la porte-parole de la famille de Bailey McCourt. Notre message à M. Carney, si vous ne voulez pas agir, enlevez-vous du chemin pour permettre les conservateurs à agir. Aujourd'hui, les conservateurs vont présenter à la Chambre des communes une motion qui va accélérer l'adoption de la loi d'Arpancana pour mettre les criminels en prison et pour réparer le système libéral de libération sous caution. Une action rapide pour mettre fin à la violence dans nos rues. Donc, on n'a même pas besoin de l'appui des libéraux. On a juste besoin qu'ils s'enlèvent du chemin pour permettre les Canadiens d'adopter la loi. En plus, nous proposons d'éliminer la loi libérale C5 qui donne les peines Netflix. C'est la proposition de Pierre Poilievre. Éliminant les peines Netflix, des criminels trouvés coupables devraient être en prison. On va aussi mettre en place protégeant nos foyers, ce qui va permettre aux Canadiens de se défendre dans leur maison quand quelqu'un entre illégalement. La loi sur la protection contre l'extorsion, la loi des conservateurs qui va mettre en place des peines minimales pour l'extorsion. Les lois à trois prises aussi va faire en sorte qu'un criminel qui a 3 convictions sérieuses va rester en prison d'au moins 10 ans sans libération sous caution, libération conditionnelle et sans libération du tout. Donc, c'est le temps d'agir. C'est le temps de rendre nos communautés sécuritaires. Nous sommes ici pour instaurer le Canada, où chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison, avec de nourriture et des maisons abordables, où leurs enfants sont sécuritaires, ils sont capables de jouer dans nos rues, et les Canadiens peuvent s'endormir sans crainte. C'est ça le Canada qu'on avait auparavant, c'est ça le Canada qu'on va réinstaurer. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. We as Conservatives are back at work, fighting for a Canada with stronger take-home pay, safer streets, secure borders, and a self-reliant nation. A country where people feel safe and secure, where when they get home and turn that key to get into their home, they're finally in their wonderful refuge, where they have no more concerns, where they're at peace, where they know their kids can go in the yard or in the front driveway and play street hockey, where they know that the local parks are safe and free from needles and danger. And they know that when they come out in the morning, the car will still be there. The glass will not be broken, that no one will have invaded their home and threatened their lives. But after 6 years of liberal crime laws, that is the exact opposite of the experience we are living with today. Violent crime is raging out of control. We saw the most recent tragic example of that just in the last few days in St. Jerome in Quebec, where a man who had 30 prior convictions and had violated his bail provisions 16 times is now standing accused of murdering his girlfriend, a man who should have been behind bars, and if he had been, this tragedy would not have occurred. Of course, he wasn't, because under Liberal law C-75, judges are required to release the accused at the, quote, earliest opportunity under the, quote, least restrictive conditions. We see the case of Shakir Badi, an Ajax man arrested in connection with a violent home invasion and the kidnapping of a 54-year-old man that left a 55-year-old man seriously injured. Mr. Badi was released on bail despite having been charged with attempted murder, conspiracy of committing murder, robbery with a firearm, disguised with an intent, possession of a restricted firearm, knowingly not holding a license, possession of prohibited devices, and possession of property obtained of crime over a $5,000 limit. At the time of his arrest, Masih Mohammed was himself out on bail for unrelated offenses. This was one of just a series of violent crimes perpetrated against innocent Canadians. After being convicted of assault and uttering threats, James Plover was released while awaiting sentence. 3 hours later, he brutally murdered Bailey McCourt, his ex-wife, in a parking lot just 4 kilometers away from the courthouse. If he had been kept behind bars where he belonged, that beautiful woman would be alive today. But thanks to Liberal bail laws that required him be released, she's not with us anymore. Because of Liberal bail, extortion is up 330%. Because of Liberal bail, sexual assaults are up 76%. Because of Liberal bail, violent crime is up 55%. And because of Liberal bail, homicides are up 29%. Because of Liberal bail, Canadians are no longer safe. So Mark Carney, knowing that Canadians were terrified and frustrated by the crime wave his party had caused, pulled a bait and switch in the last election. He promised Liberals would flip-flop on bail, that if re-elected, after 10 years, they would have learned their lesson. And he said, we will act decisively to strengthen the criminal code. Decisively. Here we are, 6 months later, and where is this decisive action to reverse Liberal bail? He said, we will move aggressively to protect victims by making bail laws stricter for violent and organized crime. Well, tell that to the victims of crime. Tell that to the family of Bailey McCourt, who lost her life to someone out on Liberal bail. Then he appointed the single worst Trudeau minister, Sean Fraser, the guy who destroyed our immigration system, the guy who destroyed our housing market, and now his reward is he gets to be the justice minister responsible for the crime laws. It is no wonder that crime and chaos are out of control when Mr. Fraser and then, of course, Gary Ananasangri, a man who has been caught on tape admitting that he's implementing gun laws that won't work, that make no sense, and that will ultimately cost $750 million, all to win votes rather than save lives. These are the Liberals that Mark Carney puts in charge. You know, we're not asking for Mark Carney to be a hero. You know what we're asking him to do? Get out of the way. Get out of the way, Mark Carney. You are the only thing stopping Canadians from having strong bail laws that will keep them safe. And the media has wrongly said that what we need is bail reform. We have bail reform. It's called C-75. We have bail reform. Bail reform by Liberals that allows repeat offenders out of jail again and again and again. What we need to do is scrap Liberal bail. Scrap Liberal bail to keep violent offenders behind bars. Scrap Liberal bail to lock up sex offenders. Scrap Liberal bail to bring safety and tranquility to our streets. And that is why the great RPAN Canada has introduced Bill C-242, the Jail Not Bail Act, to end the Liberal crime wave, undoing all the broken Liberal laws and getting the criminals behind bars. This policy has been endorsed by the Toronto Police Association, various community advocates, Debbie Henderson, the spokesman for the Bailey family, for Bailey McCourt's family. Today, Conservatives will introduce a motion in the House of Commons that would push the rapid adoption of RPAN Canada's Jail Not Bail Act. Again, we don't need the Liberals to do anything. We just need them to get out of the way. If they will abstain on this vote and agree to let this bill pass, we can scrap Liberal bail. They've had 6 months since the last election. Mark Carney promised he would reverse Liberal bail laws, and here we are a half a year later, and those laws are still in place, and they haven't even introduced a bill. What is taking so long? Seriously. While people are dying on our streets, where our citizens are being massacred, while women are being killed by abusive ex-husbands, Mark Carney has spent 6 months spinning in circles, leaving Liberal laws in place. And he is personally responsible for the violence on our streets because it is him that is standing in the way of us fixing the problem. So we ask Liberals to get out of the way and let us scrap Liberal bail. Let us also scrap the house arrest law, CC5. We have a bill from Pierre Poilievre, our member from Quebec City, to get criminals in jail, not in house arrest. The Stand on Guard law will be coming soon from Conservatives that will allow people to protect themselves in their own homes against violent intruders. The Protection Against Extortion Act, another Conservative bill that Liberals are blocking, which would lock up the extortionists that are terrorizing Surrey, Brampton, and Northeast Calgary, and the Three Strikes You're Out law that would guarantee that anyone convicted of 3 violent offenses will have a mandatory 10 years in prison with no parole, probation, bail, or house arrest. These are real common sense actions that Conservatives are proposing and Liberals are blocking. Again, our message is we ask only one thing of Mark Carney and the Liberals. Please get out of the way. We are ready to protect Canadians and restore safe streets for our country. Let's again make this a country where everybody feels safe, where when your head hits the pillow at night, you know that you'll wake up safely with your car in your driveway, that your kids will be safe at school, in their parks, and outside, where women no longer have to fear violent ex-husbands and other abusers, where all Canadians feel safe in this wonderful country under our proud flag. Thank you very much.
We will now open the floor to questions. Please identify yourself and your outlet.
Mr. Poilievre, do you support the Liberals' decision to end door-to-door delivery, bring in community mailboxes, and would you support back-to-work legislation?
What a mess. Unbelievable. 10 years later, after Conservatives had made Canada Post viable, 10 years later, Liberals have lost $5 billion Canadian tax dollars mismanaging Canada Post. Now the workers at Canada Post are suffering. Small businesses face interruptions to their delivery. Rural communities are being deprived of their essential services. Everyone is losing because of Liberal incompetence. And you know, it's just a reminder, when Liberals say there's no cost to their deficits, we now see that there are very real costs. People are paying the price because the longer you pile up Liberal debt, the bigger the price will be in service cuts, and higher taxes later on. And that's why what we need is a Conservative government that will responsibly manage our tax dollars, bring down these inflationary deficits, get more value for the money we spend, and make this a country where people get good service at a good price. Thank you.
Next question.
l'agence d'approvisionnement militaire que le gouvernement lance aujourd'hui. Est-ce que c'est correct de retirer l'approvisionnement des mains des Forces armées canadiennes? Est-ce que ce sera plus efficace selon vous?
Les libéraux ont tellement mal géré l'achat des équipements et des produits pour les forces armées. Je ne fais aucune confiance au gouvernement libéral, surtout M. Carney, de bien gérer ça. Évidemment, les forces armées souffrent après 10 ans de malgestion des libéraux. Et je note encore, c'est un autre exemple où après 6 mois au pouvoir, la seule chose que M. Carney peut annoncer, c'est un autre bureau. Nos secteurs de ressources naturelles perdent des emplois. M. Carney crée un autre bureau. On a une crise de logement. Après que les libéraux ont doublé le coût du logement, c'est quoi sa solution? Un autre bureau. Les forces armées n'ont pas l'équipement nécessaire. M. Carney va établir un autre bureau. Est-ce que c'est ça son plan, que tout le monde va travailler comme bureaucrate dans un autre bureau fédéral? Ou bien est-ce qu'un jour on va avoir des vrais résultats pour livrer pour les soldats et les Canadiens?
National Post.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with your premier that a new West Coast pipeline is a litmus test for whether Canada still works and whether we can still build things in this country?
Almost. I think it's a litmus test for Mark Carney. There was a lot of grandiose promises by Mr. Carney during the election that he would build, baby, build faster than you'd ever imagined we could build. So when is this building going to happen? Here we are, 6 months after he took office, and the new Liberal government looks an awful lot like the old Liberal government. The last 6 months looks an awful lot like the last 10 years, where they block, baby, block. So there's only one person who will decide if this pipeline gets built, and it's Mark Carney. So I would encourage you all to ignore provincial politicians who have no authority in this matter. Like, the reality is the federal government has the full authority over interprovincial pipelines. So there's one man who stands in the way of this pipeline getting built. It's Mark Carney. If the Liberals want it built, they will immediately repeal the tanker ban so the pipe can fill a ship that goes abroad, the production cap so that our producers can make enough oil to go in the pipe, and C-69 so that the pipe can get rapidly approved. Mark Carney really only has to do one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. I will note there is some good news, followed by bad news. Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines. That's the good news. Terrible news. They're building them in the United States of America without taxpayer support. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines right now in the U.S. without taxpayer money. TransCanada Pipelines is building $8.5 billion of brand new projects in the United States without taxpayer money. But here in Canada, Mark Carney is in the way. So my message to Mark Carney, get out of the way so that Canadians can get building a pipeline. That's the way we send our resources to 2.5 billion Asian customers, so we're no longer reliant on the Americans for all of our exports.
Jillian Piper with Global News. Mr. Poilievre, do you think Canada should match the new U.S. retaliatory tariffs that came into place yesterday on pharmaceuticals, heavy trucks, and some furniture?
Well, I think Mr. Carney should keep his promise. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the United States by July 21st. Where's the win? Since Mr. Carney took office promising to be a brilliant negotiator, American tariffs on Canada have more than doubled, and they have much broadened. China, smelling weakness, has hit our farmers and fish harvesters with increased tariffs as well. Mark Carney is losing trade wars with Beijing and with Washington, and Canadians are paying the price after 6 months of broken promises. I would call on Mark Carney to immediately eliminate his tariffs on Canadian industry. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax. Get rid of anti-development laws so that we can start producing more here in Canada. Get out of the way and let builders build homes so that so that our lumber can go into home building. Those are the best ways that we can stand up for our country. And we're here to propose as well, not just oppose. I'm offering Mr. Carney something very generous. We propose the Canada Sovereignty Act, which will repeal all the anti-development laws and cut taxes. It'll bring home our technology to this country. And I'm offering Mr. Carney that I will hand him that bill and let him introduce it as a government bill. We will put aside all partisanship and let him pass that immediately. Do you think we could do that? Yeah. So we have, look at this kind of, the way we're putting differences aside for the interests of our country. This is the kind of collaboration we need in Canada. Yes, sir. Oui.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Noah Walker with CTV News.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the Bloc leader said that as it stands, his party would no longer support the budget. I'm wondering what, if anything, would it take for your party to support the budget?
Well, we'll be laying out a specific list of demands. But first of all, we have some very serious questions. Mark Carney promised he would spend less. His deficit is almost 100% more than the one that Trudeau left behind. He promised that we would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. We have the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. He promised that he would double home building. Home building is down by 13%. He promised affordable food, and now food price inflation is almost twice the Bank of Canada's target and 50% higher in Canada than in the United States, while we expect 4 million visits to the Toronto Food Bank. So we want Mr. Carney to explain why after 6 months after making these grandiose promises, all Canadians have is costly bait and switch.
Dans son discours d'ouverture, M. Poilievre, Olivier Boissé de TVA, dans son discours d'ouverture cette semaine, le Premier ministre du Québec, François Legault, a identifié parmi ses priorités de barrer la route aux islamistes radicaux parce qu'ils s'en prennent à nos valeurs. Est-ce qu'il a raison de s'en préoccuper?
Les libéraux ont divisé notre pays entre l'un groupe contre l'autre groupe. Ils ont vu les politiques libérales ont augmenté les crimes haineux par plus de 100%. Ils ont brisé notre système d'immigration en permettant des criminels d'entrer dans notre pays sans aucune vérification. Maintenant, il y a 600 criminels de l'étranger qui sont libres et perdus dans nos rues à cause des libéraux. Donc, c'est le chaos que les libéraux ont créé. Nous croyons qu'on devrait mettre fin à la criminalité, barrer nos frontières aux criminels de l'étranger et créer un système d'immigration qui met de l'avant les valeurs canadiennes, les valeurs d'égalité, de liberté personnelle et de sécurité dans nos rues, des valeurs qui ont été brisées par des libéraux. Excellent.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Kyle Duggan from the Canadian Press. There is an ostrich farm out in BC that's facing a potential cull of its ostriches. Its supporters are looking to see if you support or oppose this. Have you taken any kind of position on this, or are you willing to speak to this matter in the House, as some of your MPs have?
Well, just yesterday I did speak on it, pointing out that this is just another example of total liberal incompetence. They've mismanaged this from the very beginning, and now they've left Canadians confused, farmers baffled by the total incompetence by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Another disastrous liberal mishandling of an issue that has left us with the problem we have today. Thank you.
Mr. Poilievre, good morning. How should the government handle the EV tariff situation with China? How can you restore canola free trade with China? Would you be in favor of removing EV tariffs on China?
No, I would not. And this is another example of Mark Carney's weakness abroad costing Canadians at home. So Beijing hits Canada with higher tariffs on fertilizer, on canola and fish harvesters and numerous other agricultural products. And what does Mark Carney do? He gives them $1 billion taxpayer-backed loan to buy, so that we can buy Chinese-made ships. So he's taking Canadian jobs away from Canadian workers to give them to a country that is hammering our farmers and fish harvesters with tariffs. You know, it's incredible. Everywhere Mark Carney goes, we get hit with higher tariffs. You know, some people think I've criticized him for traveling. It's not his traveling, it's his results. Let's go through the background. He goes to Washington, gets wonderful, gushing media coverage. What's the result? The Americans double tariffs on Canada. He goes to Europe, twice to UK. And what do? Lock in the blockade against Canadian beef production. He meets with the Chinese premier. And what do the Chinese do? They double tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. It's that we would be better off if Mark Carney would hide under a rock than we are with him traveling around the world. Everywhere he goes, we end up with higher tariffs. You know what I mean? Like, if he would lock himself in a room, we would be getting a better result on tariffs than we are right now. It has been a gigantic bait and switch. We were sold about this brilliant negotiator. Where is it? Point to me to a single win anywhere in the world. And by the way, these agreements he gets, they're not agreements. They're declarations that can contain in the very first page that they have no legal binding and that they have no finances involved. So despite these public relations tours that he does around the world at great expense to taxpayers, all he has brought home is heavier tariffs on Canadians and a weaker Canadian economy. We need a new direction for our country, one that puts Canada first, one that will unlock our industry, make us a nation that is strong, self-reliant, and stands on its own 2 feet, that produces its own resources, that rewards hard work with low taxes, fast permits, and the best business environment in the world. That's the vision we have for Canada. Let's put our country first.
Thank you. That concludes today's event.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right on. Thank you.